It is Tuesday night, 2 days after the 49ers absolutely dismantled the Eagles, and about 5 days before they likely do it again to the Seahawks. Great week, great win, and I got my guy, Sunil, here tonight to talk about it. I'm sure he's going to hate most of my takes, and we're going to have a lot of arguments, but it's always in good fun. We're going to talk about the 49ers victory. We're going to talk about their upcoming game, the outlook on the season, and much more coming up next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's Tuesday night, like I said, so I got my guy So Real, Sunil, in the building. What's up, Sunil?
Dat gangsta nerd.
For this weekend,
this week only, we go on with what Ryan Clark called the 49ers, saying they some gangsta nerds. So in Philly win week, while we still cooking birds, it's not so real, Sunil. It's that gangsta nerd.
I like it. I didn't even catch the reference. So was he like talking trash about him? Was it?
No, he basically was saying that when the 49ers are fully healthy, they are the smartest schematic offense, plus they are violent. And so Marcus Spears was like, kind of like some gangster nerds. And Ryan Clark was like, yeah, they are some gangster nerds.
I like it. I like it. All right. We'll take it. It's a positive. I was gonna say, who could possibly be talking trash about the Niners after that game? But
AJ Brown.
Here we go. Well, he played him. That's totally understandable. So before we get fully into our topics, there is some news to talk about here. That is the 49ers signing veteran safety now, Logan Ryan, and waiving Ty Davis Price. What do you think about the moves here by the San Francisco 49ers as they gear up for their playoff run, Sunil?
Yeah, I mean, look, another Kyle Shanahan third-round draft pick, because we know, John Lynch, Adam Pierce, York, they give Kyle Shanahan, they're like, yo, you get one of these third-round picks since you earned them with all this compensatory picks. You gain our team from being one of the greater coaching developers in the game. So we're going to give you one of these third-round picks for you to choose. He picked Trey Sermon. They cut him. He picked TDP. They cut him. This year, I'm pretty sure that Cam Latu pick was him. So next year, I'm expecting Cam Latu to be cut as well, so that they could bring in somebody of need. And Logan Ryan is a player, obviously, with Hufanga going down, George Odom going down. We're going into this stretch where health obviously can become an issue, and we're really, really thin there at safety. Behind Gibson and Jair Brown. So bringing in a guy like Logan Ryan, who has been on championship teams, won chips, understands what it takes, even if he's not going to be able to play at the level that obviously he was when he was winning those chips with New England. I still think his leadership, his experience, him understanding what it takes to be victorious is going to be great for a very young secondary. And I think he'll fit right in with the culture of the 49ers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I had talked about with this team is the only player I could think of that actually had a ring was, and does Logan Ryan have a ring for sure? Are we positive about that? He has two of them. Okay. So there you go. I mean, that's championship pedigree right there. Really only Charvarius Ward is the only player I can think of that had a ring on this team. So yeah, that's a really big get. Obviously, they do need the depth help at safety. Now, I mean, he's around 32 years old, a little bit older, but he's a veteran in this league. I don't believe he's played on a team so far this year, but he was with the Patriots, really good corner early on in his career, and then transitioned to safety as he got a little bit older, but good player. Good player. Likely isn't going to start for the 49ers, but a nice depth piece and really that veteran leadership is needed in this locker room. So, yes, I like the move of bringing in Logan Ryan, but man, TDP, a casualty. Just don't draft running backs in the third round anymore. Can we just commit to that? As long as we commit to not drafting running backs in the third round or just not letting Kyle make the third round picks anymore, that would be fantastic because man,
I don't
this
know,
is
man. Whenever they do draft a third round running back, somehow they hit gold later on in that draft. So maybe they need to continue the like. Don't break what ain't broken. I mean, don't try to fix what ain't broken. Right? Let Kyle Shanahan have his pick. Clearly, the end of the draft is going to be good. We get some ballers out of the end of the draft. And then you just cut them, right? You just cut them, bring in somebody of need for that late run. It's working right now, man. Don't you're sitting here trying to have perfection. It's
mm,
not about perfection. It's about progression. My man Kyle Shanahan has come so far in your eyes. Why not keep him happy with at least his little third round compensatory pick?
yeah. And Matt says that Sue's going back to Philly. That doesn't surprise me. I don't know what that does for him. They have really good depth on the interior of that defensive line.
Can he
Really
play
good.
linebacker?
Yeah, right. I mean, well, that's where Darius Leonard comes in. He signed there, or Shaq Leonard, I guess, Shaquille Leonard. He signed there, so I think that's probably their help at linebacker that they're looking to get. And then Dallas Goddard will be back. It's going to be a fun rematch, and I do expect it to be a rematch with Philly and San Francisco. Looking forward to that. I think the game will play out a little bit different. And I would say that Sunday was a bit of a surprise in general. Not that the 49ers won. I think we both picked the 49ers to win. I picked them to win by 8. I don't remember your margin, but I don't know that we saw 40 plus points and holding them and their offense down to 19 points. It was pretty impressive. There was a lot of things that you can point to, I believe, that were a surprise from Sunday. But Sunil, for you, what is the biggest surprise from this game?
The discipline.
Mm,
And I want to mention a player. I want to mention two players, and then just shout out the defensive line for what they did. The two players I want to mention who I don't think are getting enough praise from the faithful right now, Ambry Thomas, Oren Burks. Two players that have come in and filled in gaps that would have been weaknesses that opposing offenses could take advantage of. I was watching these breakdowns from the day after the game, so Monday, and they were talking about how the 49ers were picking at the third cornerback in for the Eagles, and how Jawan Jennings was getting, being able to win that battle every single time. And then I was watching, breakdowns for all other games, and that's basically what other offenses do, right? They look for wherever the weakness is, wherever the injured player, whoever replaced the injured player, whoever's the backup, and then they run that to that and take advantage of it. We've seen it time after time after time with our defense being able to take advantage of, the third cornerback or, the backup, whatever, right? And when Dre Greenlaw got kicked out, there wasn't a drop in play because Oren Burks stepped in and played exactly the way you want Oren Burks to play. But Ambry Thomas, to me, Jesse, and I've tweeted this, and I want to shout out because this was a guy I was really, really high on, and I was getting a lot of egg on my face because he wasn't playing the way that I expected him to play or anybody expected him to play. Got to shout out Steve Wilkes for getting the best out of him, but his ability to hold strong on the outside, to let Lenore Demo step into that slot position, along with Charvarius Ward playing the way he's playing, gives us a cornerback crew that, especially with the way that the 49ers attack this offense, where the rushers, the defensive line, their goal wasn't to get to the quarterback. Their goal was to keep him in the pocket. And you saw multiple coverage sacks because Jalen Hurts couldn't find anybody open, even though it felt like he had like 10 seconds where he was just in the pocket, just waiting there, waiting for somebody to open up. And to me, that's a shout out to the secondary. That's a shout out even a guy like Jared Brown, who's come in and hasn't been a weakness at all. But I want to shout out Ambry Thomas, especially because he was looking like he was going out of the league. And now he's looking like an imperative extension that the 49ers might need to make, being able to possibly get him on a cheaper deal because he's only shown out this 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tweeted out at some point during that game that I couldn't be happier for Ambry Thomas. There's certain players that you just root for, and I remember his rookie year when he came in and was playing, I thought pretty well. A lot of people were really tearing into him because of it seemed like every week he was giving up the one play. He would get mossed every single week, but he was in position. But when you watched him play in and play out, he was playing really good football. And I talked about it a lot. And I had hoped that he was really going to take that step forward his second year. And it just didn't happen. I have my reasons as to why it didn't happen, or my thoughts as to why it didn't happen. And then it just seemed like the further we got away from that first year, the less of a chance that it was going to happen. And then I watched him up close and personal during training camp, and every single time, Sunil, he was on the field, it was mouse in the house picking on Ambry Thomas. Every time he entered the field, they picked on Ambry Thomas. I'm like, oh man, I don't see how there's a scenario who doesn't make this team. Then they have a couple injuries at the corner spot. I think that helped his cases to make this team. And thank God it did, because he's really showing that he's able to turn it around. But I think the biggest thing is Wilkes understanding what these players do best. Another topic of conversation that we've had is it's really strange that this team plays so much zone coverage when all they seem to bring in are man press corners. Why do they continue to play soft zone? That is not what these corners do. And for a while, there was that stretch where they couldn't seem to stop anybody, but they kept playing soft zone. Now they're playing more press man. They're putting these corners in a position to succeed and do what they do best. And it's starting to show Sunday in and Sunday out. And I had a big question about this secondary. Also, this was my biggest surprise, pleasant surprise, I will say, was the secondary holding up the way that they did. I was worried that the defensive line wouldn't be able to get home because Philly's offensive line was so good. And I do think there was some element to that. But really, the game plan was to contain Hurts more so than rush Hurts and allow him to sit back there and go through his reads. He still struggled to find people open on a regular basis. If you look at the numbers of A.J. Brown, if you look at the numbers of Devontae Smith, they were very good. I think A.J.'s was more within the flow of the game. Devontae's was kind of, as the game was out of hand, he started to compile some numbers. But for the most part, play in and play out, in the most crucial spots in the red zone, that's when this secondary played its best. Shout out to them. Very happy for that. And really, I think the biggest unanswered question on this defense was that secondary. And now we've got a lot of answers, and I feel really, really good about this defense going forward.
There really is no weaknesses to pick at, to be honest. No. They're great against the run. They can get to the quarterback. The linebackers obviously are the best in the world. And, man, Jair Brown and Ambry Thomas, Oren Burks, hats off to you guys, because it's not like one of the things I know, Jesse, you were worried about, and it wasn't just you. I think a lot of people, and maybe rightfully so, was the depth of this defense, right? We lost a lot of guys. A lot of the guys were young, but these guys that Oren Burks is on the team for 2 years. Ambry Thomas I think this is his third or fourth year. Jared Brown obviously is a rookie, but coming in and, really holding the fort. But I don't think there's enough said about the 49ers' ability to develop players. And once again, I'm going to put on my Shanahan hat and say, look, this is another key component to me why Kyle Shanahan is one of the greatest coaches in the game right now. He not only develops coaches the way that we've seen, and that's going to be that's a little Easter egg for an answer later on in the show for me, but these players, you can't say enough the fact that they could just bring in these guys and come in and play pivotal roles in pivotal games.
Yeah, most certainly. Cosmo, I know, but what's the alternative? we gotta we gotta be Cowboy fans for a few hours. It's just the way that it is. It definitely does suck, though. I will agree. Matt says intelligently schemed, ignorantly violent.
Yep, that's what Ryan Clark said.
I
And
like
then
it. That's good. That's actually really good. Nee says, thinking about the Purdy MVP convo, I can't recall players ever pushing for a Jimmy MVP. The fact that the defensive leaders like Warner are so vocal, I think it says a lot about how much they value what he does. I think they certainly value what he does. I don't know that Jimmy was ever rightfully in the conversation. When you listen to the way that guys like Eric Armstead talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, they felt like they owe any success in their career to him the way that they talk, because without him, they weren't able to win. And with him, they were. And they really talk glowingly of Jimmy. I think that Jimmy made an impact on this team. Not the best quarterback, but he made an impact on this team positively. And I think that Brock is doing that as well. And certainly, I mean, he's their guy. They should want him to win MVP. CMC should be in the conversation as well. Coach Shanahan talked about that before this last week's game, that he felt like he was the league MVP. So I think either way, this team would celebrate an MVP award going to either one of those guys on this team, and they would do so very willingly. Richard says, I have a question. The stat of 0-34 when down, is that with Purdy as quarterback? And if we put the ball in Brock's hands, do you think he can get it done? Some of that is obviously including Brock. I mean, there was a couple games this season where they were down and they were unable to come back, but I don't worry about whether Brock can or can't. I think it's definitely a fair question because we really haven't seen it with consistency, but we haven't seen him in this situation with consistency. So I don't think it's a question or a worry that he can't get it done or won't get it done. It's just an open question. I think
and
we
I
all
don't
have the
even
open
think
question.
and I don't even think if you really look into it, it's that open of a question. The reality is he's been in 4 situations
Mm-hmm.
where he's had to come from behind to win. One
Mm-hmm.
was against the Raiders, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Second one was against Cleveland. He actually put them in a position to win the game easily with a 40-yard field goal. Jake Moody missed it. One game was against Minnesota. He was concussed in that fourth quarter or whatever and threw 2 interceptions. And then the last game was against Cincinnati, and he just couldn't get it done. So there's 4 opportunities that he's had in his young career. 2 of them, he did lead them back. One actual game winning, one should have been a game winning drive. One game he was concussed, and one game he didn't. To me, like this question, I think is not a fair question to ask, because I think for the opportunities that he has, 50% of the time he put them in position to win. One of them I think you should throw out, because what do you expect from a concussed player? And the other one he didn't. So I don't know. I have no problems with that. I think that's just for people who are having trouble being wrong about Brock Purdy. Not saying you are like that, because I don't think you're saying it from that perspective. I just don't think it's a real question to ask at this point.
I think it's a very fair question to ask. I think the assumption that he won't get it done is where you go too far. It's as if there isn't 2 options here. One is he gets it done, and one is he doesn't. If you're using the question to say, "Oh, because I have the question, that means it's a problem," I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think having the question is totally fair because the sample size is so minimal. I also think that if we're going to just throw out the concussion in Minnesota, then we do have to look honestly at the Raider comeback and the Cleveland comeback and say, hey, in both of those comeback scenarios, he did put the ball in harm's way, and the game could have ended if a player potentially makes a play on the ball. So I think it's totally fair to have the question. I think what's unfair is to assume that it would automatically go wrong just because you have the question. That's where the issue comes in my opinion.
You make a good point.
Ryan says Two guys, one
I don't know what he's
show.
talking about there, bro.
Okay, all right, all right.
Pause. I think that needed a pause. I don't know
Yeah, I
why,
need a
but it
shower after that comment.
does.
Ryan becomes a member for 6 months. I appreciate it. He says, I like posting that whenever you guys do a show. Is that going to be the name of our new show? Is that what you're trying to like force into happening? Matt says Ambry is getting a ton of love. Oren needs love. I think to Sunil's point, Ambry is getting love potentially here locally in our community because we see it. I don't think that there's anybody nationally that is having an Ambry Thomas conversation, and I think that they should be because he's playing very good football. That whole move where they kicked in Diameter or Lenore inside is not possible without Ambry Thomas. It's just not. Samir says defensively, can the Cowboys copy the Niners scheme against the Eagles? Yeah, certainly. I think they can. I think it's a copycat league, and maybe they will. But not all teams have the same players, and not all teams can execute in the same manner. So it's one thing to copy. Can they be successful with it? And I guess the other question is what have the Eagles learned? If it is copied, is there something they picked up from this game and they're working on to ensure that it's not a disaster for them again going forward? But I do think it would be wise to at least try to implement some of it for sure. And I think that they do have some of the players to do so.
And what a great position for the 49ers to be in, right, Jesse? For the rest of the season, they're going to be able to see how other teams try to copy what they did against the Eagles and see what the Eagles' rebuttal is so that when they do play them later on in the playoffs, like we both think is going to happen, they'll already know what the other move is. You know what I mean? So now they'll be able to have a couple of things to throw at the Eagles, and the Eagles are going to have to, really get deep in their bag with two rookie, coordinators there to try to go up against, Shanahan, who's definitely clicking on all cylinders right now.
I'd say that's a win for the 49ers. Nee says, turns out all Ambry needed was Wilkes on the sideline. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all that he needed was Wilkes on the sideline for sure. Frank Tom Ocean says, I haven't dropped a super chat in a minute, but I will always drop in to smash the like. As always, great work, Jesse and crew. Go Niners. Frank Tom Ocean, appreciate you as always. DP says, Jesse, I think that we can run the table. I think we can too. I'm not worried about Baltimore Christmas night. If this team stays healthy and focused, we're unstoppable. I don't think we should be worried about any team. The 49ers have proven that they're an upper echelon team, maybe the upper echelon team. But I also don't want to have this assumption that they're just going to go undefeated just because they have work to do. I think Baltimore is a formidable foe. I think if I'm looking at all the teams, they are the one that is most likely to knock the Niners off. Doesn't mean that they will or we should be scared, but they certainly are a very good team as well. That's an interesting, fun game, especially when you add in the element that Lamar is something like 18 or 19-1 against the NFC. I think that there's a reason for that. It is because he is very hard to prepare for on 1 week preparation. He just is.
But I do think that a lot of the components we saw against Hurts are going to be what they force Lamar to do as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. And one thing to think about, I think, you look at the Seahawks, you look at the Rams, those are teams that we've, had some success over the last few years, but both of these teams are desperate because they're in the playoff picture, right? And that hasn't been necessarily the case all the time when the 49ers are playing them. So it's more than a rivalry game. We're going to be playing some desperate teams in the last half of the season. So 49ers definitely have to be focused because they need all of those games as well to guarantee that number one spot, right? So it's nice that everything's meaningful and, nobody's going to get rested. We could just put it that way.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, I think the only way that the 49ers are able to potentially rest is, first of all, if you're going to have the bye week, don't rest. If you've got the number one seed, don't rest. You don't want to go in 2 weeks, no football being played by your starters. But if you're going to have that 2 seed, I think resting might be a good idea in week 18 for the 49ers. Who cares if it gets the Rams in? That's not that big of a deal. Maybe you end up playing Rams the very next week because they are the 7th seed or what have you. But I would like to see the 49ers work in some rest, whether it's by them creating their own bye week because they aren't going to be the number one seed, or just by getting the number one seed. But those teams, the Rams, they're not going to be resting. That is for sure. And you're right. I mean, it gets interesting when you get in division and you've got desperate teams. Anything can happen. Any given Sunday is a real thing. So Keith Murphy, the unbeaten. Oh, and actually, real quick, I wanted to talk about, you said that you think that the Eagles are going to deploy, or excuse me, the 49ers are going to deploy some of the things that they did in the Eagles game against the Ravens. Ryan said the same thing, and I think you guys might be right. I will tell you the same thing that I told him earlier. I think that would be a mistake. Hurts and Lamar are not the same. I think that the way to attack Lamar is to not all out blitz him, but to send 5, speed up his clock. I think if you give him 6, 7, 8 seconds back there, he's not going to do what Hurts did. I think he will pick them apart. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe try both, mix it in, figure it out. I just don't think that you can deploy the same game plan, because I think that as a passer, stats aside, I think Lamar is just more advanced at going through his progressions and getting the job done in that scenario. But we'll see.
I just don't think he has the weapons that the Eagles have. And if the 49ers could shut down his weapons, like Mark Andrews is not there. So I just don't know who he's throwing to. Is Zay Flowers really somebody that the 49ers are going to be that afraid of? I don't know.
Yeah, I will say that OBJ is really starting to round into form. And it's unfortunate for them because Andrews being there would have helped. But as it was like the final week that Andrews was on the field, and then into the next week, OBJ started to look like OBJ. And then the next game, he looked like him again, started to progress towards that. And then now they've had the bye. We'll see if he's able to continue that. But the explosiveness, the route running, the separation was starting to round out and come back into his game, a year and a half removed from injury. So maybe he's finally healthy, or maybe they're just upping the game plan because Andrews is hurt. But I will say that OBJ has looked the last couple of weeks every bit as good as he's ever been, in my opinion. But we'll see if he can keep that going. Keith says, Jesse, you said Debo would back it up, and he did. Yeah, I mean, I think he had to back it up. And he's just one of those guys that he's a gamer, man. He really is a gamer. And if he's going to talk as much as he did, he should back it up, and most certainly. And in fact, I think that's a good spot. I know there's more super chats. We'll get to them in a second.
Shout out to the audience right now with these super chats. We
Yeah,
haven't had a show
coming
like this in
through
quite
for
some
sure.
time.
Yeah, they're coming through big time. So we'll get to this one in a minute. But who do you think deserves? Everybody deserves credit, right? This was a true team victory. It was great. But if you're gonna dose out the biggest credit to a player or to a coach, what have you, where are you going to give the most credit for this victory on Sunday?
Coaching staff.
Okay.
To me, this game was won based off of the schemes that were put in, understanding what this offense had. And, unfortunately, like I think obviously with the 2 new coordinators over there, they got out coached. And, obviously, you got to give a bulk of that to Shanahan. Him being the head coach, he obviously has the final say on all the plans, but I got to give it up to Wilkes. I've been critical of him, but he got this defensive line to do something that we haven't seen them be able to do, Jesse, and that's stay disciplined in their lanes.
Mm.
This has always been what the game plan has been against mobile quarterbacks, and they've never been able to do it. And maybe it's because now they're 6 deep with elite talent, because you got to say, like, a Gregory is probably a better piece than we've had coming off the bench than coming off the edge than ever before. Obviously, Chase Young is better than we've had coming off the edge ever before, but that's coaching to me, making the team buy into the game plan, even though maybe people aren't going to get the stats that they want, or aren't going to get the accolades, and it's not going to look great on the stat sheet. But what it did is the team blew out their only quote unquote only competition in the league, and as far as in the NFC, I should say. And that's a buy-in that starts with leadership, and I think that starts with the coaching staff. So to me, if I'm giving who deserves the most credit, even though obviously the players have to execute, to me, it's watching these coaches get the players, all these superstars, to buy into a game plan that's unselfish, you got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, most certainly. And it's nearly impossible to argue against the coaching staff because they cover the whole team. And it was such a team victory. The defense did a phenomenal job in their execution. The offense did every bit as good or as well in their execution. I think for me, and like I said, it's almost impossible to argue against that. But I will give a specific player credit, and it is going to go back to a comment that Keith just recently had, and that's Debo. I mean, Debo having his best game after talking trash the way that he did for a year plus, his touchdowns alone outscored the Eagles. His physicalness made the Eagles kind of cower. And I think the moment that he got going and was able to kind of turn it on, they knew that they were in for a fight that they probably weren't ready for, whether it was because the Eagles have played a bunch of tough games, they weren't healthy, whatever you want to say. There was a physicality brought, and I think a tone set by Debo that started a year ago after all this trash had been talked. And for him to deliver at that level, I mean, talk about calling your shot. That was straight up Babe Ruth getting to
Yeah.
the plate, pointing over the fence, and then delivering. It was Larry Bird in a 3-point contest shooting the final money ball, needing it to go in, turning around and putting his finger up before he sees it drop. It was that type of situation where he called the 49ers shot. And what also he did by doing that is he forced the rest of the team to kind of own up and say, well, he talked a lot of crap on my behalf. I better be able to back it up as well. He upped the intensity and the pressure on his own team, and all of them were able to go to bat for him and deliver. So if I have to give it to a player, I'm going to give it to a guy that single-handedly outscored the Eagles himself and backed up everything that he had ever talked and then some. Debo Samuel, man, you deserve a ton of credit for the way that this game went. So, but yes, the coaching staff, man, what a game plan on both sides of the ball. It started out rocky. I will say this too, Sunil. It started out very rocky. Those first two drives, Eagles going right down, moving the ball, and then the 49ers on the flip side, not being able to move the ball on really on both sides. It's like, man, what is this game plan? Is it going to be effective? But they stuck with it. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. They knew that once they got going, it was going to be too much. They stuck with the game plan, and it worked flawlessly in quarters 2, 3, and 4. It was awesome to watch.
Mm.
Keith Murphy says, with the roster, we won't trail much. And isn't it Shanahan's job to try to keep him out of adverse situations and build a great team around him? Talking about Brock Purdy. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely it is. And I think he's done a good job of that so far. I think he really has. Keith comes back and says, question, I told my friend that Brock playing at the level he is the best bargain in the NFL. No question. For his price point, and I probably wouldn't trade him for any quarterback while he is under this deal. Thoughts? Brock at this price, and if we're factoring in contracts, is really, really, really hard to trade for any quarterback, even though Mahomes is as great as he is. I think Allen's as great as he is. Some people would say Burrow, Herbert, what have you. At this price point, it would be really hard. I also think that I would be completely lying if I wasn't at least willing to trade him for the clear best quarterback in the NFL, and that's Patrick Mahomes. I don't care what the price point is. If you can get Patrick Mahomes, you get Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think there's many quarterbacks at this price point that you would trade him for. And is he the best bargain in the deal or in the league? Yes, without question he is. Yes. What about you, Sunil?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get if you can sell Brock Purdy high, which means you don't have to throw in any other additional picks, and you could get a Mahomes, a Lamar. Those are the two for me. If I could get one of those two quarterbacks, place them in Kyle Shanahan's system, those are quarterbacks that we know don't need superstars around them. And ultimately, that's what the biggest question with Purdy is, you know, how can he make players around him that much better? And eventually, we're going to have that question answered, because we got him for these next 2 years, but the year after that, you're going to have to pay him big money. You know, I understand the argument that I wouldn't trade Purdy for that, but I know Lamar Jackson, I know Patrick Mahomes don't need an Ayuk and a Debo and a Kittle and a Trent Williams and a CMC, and for us to be Super Bowl champions. I don't necessarily know that about Brock Purdy, but to the other person who just did the super chat, he hasn't been put in a position for us to find out either. So it's just going with the known versus the unknown.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Beats and Meat says nobody has mentioned the baptism that Demo laid on running back Swift at the end of the game. Wow. Yeah, I talked about it in the post game, and to me, that's one of those hits that I think lingers if they play again, or potentially could linger. I don't know if it's as crazy as Chancellor on Vernon Davis, where it completely changes the way that he plays against Seattle. But I think it could. I think if a corner is hitting like that, and you know that you've got linebackers like Fred Warner and Greenlaw, Huff's not out there, unfortunately. But either way, I think that it could make you think twice. So I'm curious to see how it plays the next time that they do play. And is Swift hesitant because of that? I don't know. Wolf Life Wild says often imitated, never duplicated. Niner gang. Yes, absolutely. I think that's going back to the comment of, can the Dallas Cowboys implement the same game plan? Ryan says, here's a $2 super chat and behave.
Maybe on behalf
of BB, Brother Bob.
Brother Bob.
Brother
Where
Bob?
is Brother
Okay.
Bob?
All right. I don't know
I
where
miss
Brother Bob is. Shout out,
Rhinos
Brother
had
Bob.
nothing negative to say about Shanahan.
Yeah, but he'll get
show.
in here. He'll get in here before the end of the show and talk trash to you. Keith Murphy says Baltimore's linebackers are better than the Eagles. Yeah, yes. They're that's one of the few duos, if any duo, other than us that can possibly compete with the 49ers duo. I don't think it's as good. I think the 49ers have the best duo in the league, but that's a very good one. Very good one. Their defense in general is really good. Their defensive scheme is elite. They're doing some good things over in Baltimore for sure. It'll be a fun game. I can't wait for that one. Samir says, +1 to the coaching staff credit. Sirianni kept saying in the post-game presser that they got out coached, in his own words. Yeah, absolutely. If you watch the Eagles pressers, they took a lot of accountability. I mean, they said that they got out coached. They said they got outplayed. They said that they know what they need to work on, and they plan on working on implementing the run better, being more diverse in their offensive attack. And I think that that's a team that going to the Super Bowl, having some Super Bowl champs on that team, having some college football champions on that team, I think that that's a team that will take full accountability and bounce back the best way that they can. I just don't know that it's enough when they play the 49ers, so we will see. Wolf Life says, by the way, thanks for sharing Corey Davis's channel. Rest in peace. Yeah, that whole situation was super sad. That one was brought to me by Bryant Culp, one of the best people around, by the way. If you've seen Bryant, he's super, super nice guy. And he let me know that Corey Davis, who had a channel himself, passed away a couple days ago. And one of the things that he was hoping for before he had passed was to get to 300 subs. He was around 270. I shared it on the channel and y'all blew it up. I think it's over 400 now. So shout out to you guys for doing that. I think that was a really cool thing that you guys were able to do. And certainly rest in peace to Corey for sure. Cryptic says, when it comes to the top teams in the NFC, Dallas, San Francisco, Philly, it comes down to TDs. Difference between 6-0 and 14-0. Niners capitalize more. Yeah, certainly. If that game was 14-0, I think we're looking at maybe a different outcome, and certainly a different score. And it probably comes down to the very end. 14-0 is a very, very different game. Yes, I agree with that. Lob says Chiefs, Ravens, O lines are top 5 in the NFL. Guess people only looking at receivers when they think of weapons. Yeah, I mean, I think both offensive lines can be had. I think there's some weaknesses there. I think the Ravens O line's a little bit better than the Chiefs, but I don't think there's any O line that's perfect. But yes, certainly should be brought up when we talk about it in a matchup. Brother Bob, there he is.
There he
I'm
is.
late, and the first thing is Sunil's BS. God hates me.
It's like
Nice.
Novocaine, baby. Eventually it's gonna hit. Eventually it's gonna hit, brother Bob.
All right. 49ers with their big victory on Sunday. Sometimes it's hard to take a lesson out of this or something that was learned from a blowout victory. Although it was against a good team, the 49ers have been blowing out a lot of teams. And I think that there's a lot of questions that still potentially are unanswered. But I think that there was some things that we learned in this week's game. For you, Sunil, what is a thing or two that you learned by watching them absolutely dismantle the Eagles on Sunday?
That this team is who we say they are, right? I think that one of the things we look at when you have a team that's rated in the top 5 in on offense and defense, which the 49ers are,
Mm-hmm.
you tend to think, okay, maybe it's opponents, maybe it's timing, maybe it's maybe it's this, maybe it's that, right? Whereas this team, when they're healthy and they're clicking, the games aren't close, no matter what the caliber of your team is. And it seems like as long as this team can score more than 17 points, is going to be a multiple score victory for the 49ers. And it doesn't matter how good your defense is. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. It doesn't matter what kind of winning streak you're on. It doesn't matter what type of weapons you have. It doesn't matter how good your offensive line is. It doesn't matter how good your defensive line is. This team, if they're healthy and in their bag, is unstoppable. And on either side of the ball and special teams, like, man, these rookies coming in on special teams as gunners, oh my God, the way that they play, like, it must be so fun, Jesse, to be in that locker room right now and be on those practice fields because they got everybody playing at an elite level. So yeah, I'm just gonna go back to this team is what we thought they were. Um, and it's look, this is the best chance I've ever seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl in my time, right? And I was around for the 94 Super Bowl, and yeah, that team was pretty dominant, but I don't know if I was this confident in this a team being that much better than everybody else in the league. It's phenomenal shout out to York, shout out to the GM, Lynch, Peters, Shanahan, everybody, man. What they put on the field for us this year as 49ers fans is exceptional, and hopefully they could finish it out and win a chip because this would be an amazing year to be a part of.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think this is the best team that they've had in the Shanahan era, I think. And I think also that it couples with the worst, arguably, that the league has been during that period. And when you combine those two, it should mean that this is their best chance to win a Super Bowl. I would say that I also learned that this team, although they haven't won a Super Bowl, and usually it's teams that have won a Super Bowl are the teams that are able to do this, pick and choose your spots, when to turn it up and when to kind of ease off. The 49ers are one of those teams that if they need to turn it on, they have an extra gear that they can go to. And usually, like I said, that takes a championship caliber team. And the fact that they're able to do that tells me that they are a championship caliber team. And I didn't know that they had that gear in them. We saw them do it against Dallas. That was one thing. But to do it in Philadelphia, I don't care who was injured, how many days or how many games they played or how many snaps they played the game before. None of that should have meant that they got beat the way that they did. And that was a thorough domination that the 49ers laid out there. I didn't know that they had that gear. And we learned that they do have that gear. I do want to say this, though, because you brought up 94 and it triggered a thought I was having earlier today. And this was a thought I don't like thinking, but I'm going to put it out there so everybody else has to think about it as well. Do you remember what happened in 94 when the 49ers played the Eagles?
I do not.
The Eagles smacked the 49ers, smacked them. Steve Young was benched. It was an awful blowout. And that was kind of the wake-up call game for the 49ers to go on and win the Super Bowl. And I couldn't help but to think of this horrible thought that what if we are to the Eagles what the Eagles were to us in 94 by blowing them out, and now that wakes them up and allows them to go win a Super Bowl. I don't think that that's the case. This game is much later in the season, but it's a thought that I had and a bad one. And so instead of just keeping it to myself like a good person, I'm going to throw it out into the ether and make you all think about it as well, because that's what a real friend does.
Pessimistic Jesse strikes again.
Sorry, I had to put it out there.
Hey, it's your nature. It's your nature. It's your nature to be negative, Jesse. I understand.
Matt says, "Can Brother Bob and I get a shout out for the best comment creators?" Yeah, I mean, I like how you just created this whole thing, but comment creators of the year, I think you guys are both
that's
nominated
elite for sure. I like comment creator. That is
a good one, actually.
For that. Yeah, that is.
Brother Bob says MMK or MK, I don't know. Made a cup. Oh, okay. He said he's working on a cut up of Larry and his Brandon Ayuk take, I guess. Brother Bob says, I hate to admit it, but Kyle Shanahan gets an A. Shut the F up, Sunil.
Hey, as long as I could get into the cookout again, Brother Bob, that's all I'm looking for as a plate.
808 Niner says the thing that I took away was they are like the Cowboys. When it comes down to it, they got punched in the mouth and just stayed down. They straight up quit.
Yeah, and that's the Eagles.
Yeah, he is. No, but that's very surprising for a team that had been punched in the mouth the last 2 weeks and didn't quit. They didn't fold, but the 49ers just hit a little bit harder than their previous opponents.
And I don't think they quit. Like, I think that, with all due respect, I don't think that's what we saw. I think that the score, that's the easy take to make. But the Eagles were trying, and they got some momentum back, right? They scored after that whole Dre Greenlaw thing on the sideline, him getting kicked out and all that kind of stuff. But the 49ers coming back and scoring in like 47 seconds, like that, like you can get knocked out and keep trying. But every time you get up, if you get knocked down again, like that's tough to overcome. And I think the 49ers just have multiple ways to win. And, going back to this, what we learned, like before the 49ers offense, even when it was dynamic, Jesse, it was really one way, right? The run was going to open up the pass.
Mm-hmm.
And there was different levels of explosives based off of that. That's not the offense anymore with Brock Purdy there. They could win in multiple ways. They could win through the run. They could win with the deep ball. And they could win with the dink and dunk. And I think that's extremely – when you can win on 3 different layers and still be able to put up 40-plus, 30-plus points, even if running the ball is the main focus, even if throwing the ball deep is the main focus, even if dink and dunk is the main focus, what can you do as a defense? Because now you can't shut down anything, and the 49ers still have a combination punch on offense. And that's something that I think is very unique because we haven't seen that in the 2019 run. We didn't see that in the 2021 run. That's something that's new, and got to give shout out to Brock Purdy because his ability to process, his athleticism, and his ability to be accurate with the ball is opening up this other level where you can go 2 drives, and get your offense into rhythm without ever handing the ball off to CMC, which is insane. That's never been a thing for the 49ers. So that's something that I learned as well, that this team can win on offense in multiple ways.
Yeah, I think his athleticism is really kind of the key that unlocks everything. I mean, his processing is phenomenal, but in conjunction with the athleticism, the ability to just break containment, I think when a defensive team or a defensive player has you lined up as a quarterback and you're able to escape that time and time and time, I think it's very demoralizing. We saw it in a different manner with Russell Wilson. I think is a little bit more dynamic athletically, but Brock has quick feet and he's able to move and just evade just enough to where it becomes deadly and frustrating for other teams. And that's all you need. You don't need crazy athleticism, but the ability to evade and the ability to run at times, dude, it's so tough to go against, especially when you've got these weapons surrounding it. So I agree with that. And I also want to say to your point, I don't know that they quit or what have you, but one thing I said on Sunday, and I want to reiterate it, we shouldn't be saying that the Eagles are trash. They are not trash. I don't think any less of the Eagles today than I thought going into that game. What we should be saying is that's a very good team, but the 49ers are just that good. It's not that the Eagles are bad or that some of these other, Cowboys or whoever are that awful. It's that the 49ers are that good. And the more that you say that this team sucks, the more you're kind of diminishing what the 49ers are really doing. And we do it a lot with opposing quarterbacks, and we have for years because a lot of people only watch them play the 49ers. And the only thought was, oh, well, against the 49ers, that quarterback was awful. So that means that quarterback is awful. No, that's not the case. These quarterbacks are really good, and the defense makes them look awful. That is a testament to the 49ers. I think when you say things like, oh, that quarterback's not good or that team's not good, you're stripping away all the good that the 49ers have done. They're just that much better right now. And hopefully they can continue to be that much better as they move through this chance to win a Super Bowl, I guess is the best way to put it.
This run. Because the Eagles are still in the NFC the toughest out for the 49ers.
Yeah.
That team has built to beat the 49ers. Luckily, I think the 49ers are just as built to beat the Eagles, and they're that much better in coaching than the Eagles are right now, which gives us a significant thing that they're just not those coaches aren't going to be able to make up that difference.
Brother Bob says, yeah, but Sunil, if we don't win the Super Bowl, then it's worthless. He's just making sure that he lets you know that.
Yeah. Brother Bob is like 97% of every other NFL expert that's like, see, I told you they wouldn't win the Super Bowl. Like, yeah, only one team wins out of the 32 teams in the league, my guy.
It's got to happen this year for the 49ers, though. Like I said, if we agree this is the best that they've ever been, I don't know if you agree with my take that the other upper echelon teams aren't as historically good as what we've seen either. I think even throughout this last run, I mean, those Kansas City teams have been very, very good. Tampa Bay team was very, very good. Not that these teams aren't good, but I think that the league slightly has taken a back step. The 49ers have taken a step forward. It should be a recipe to go win a Super Bowl. Hopefully they can get it done.
As long as they're healthy, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing is health. Samir says, lesson learned, punishing Jalen Hurts when he runs downhill is the key to get against the tush push. They punted on 4th and 2 after linebackers cracked him. Yeah, I don't think that we're going to stop the tush push so much, but 2 yards is a lot.
Although the horse collar seems to be a good way to do it. Chase Young grab it.
Yeah, I did.
Maybe that's it. Just take a penalty over and over and over again.
Ryan says $1 for each elbow I can see. And what's funny is I was in a show on my elbows, but then he had already said, Jesse, let's see him. So he already paid for it. So there you go. Matthew says, starting to look like a championship team, Kyle Shanahan needs to point them in the right direction and get out of the way. Super Bowl teams always have that dog in them. The 49ers certainly have those players, and they have a little bit extra for sure.
And I saw the Kyle Shanahan shade in that post. Get it together, man. Stop it. Stop it.
Matt says Eagles tried to counterpunch and got jacked up. Yeah, they certainly did. They certainly did. Cryptic says Debo needs to take it personal for 8 more games.
No,
I know
he doesn't.
that we
Keep him healthy. He doesn't
but when
need to
you
score
see
3 touchdowns
Debo
every game.
but when you see Debo do that, it's awesome, but at the same breath, it's a little frustrating. Not that you want to do that every week, but when you see him disappear for weeks at a time, it's like, man, we can't get a little bit more out of you making your 20 plus million next year.
They don't need him though. That's what I'm saying. Like, would you rather Debo do like that and not see the resurgence of Brandon Ayuk? To me, I think they're developing a dynasty here, and being able to have that. Like, here's the thing that I know this team is crazy. And after the in the press conferences, they talk so much about the unselfishness of this team, but that third touchdown that Debo got, the person that celebrated the hardest was Brandon Ayuk, running full speed down and sliding with whatever he was doing, the angel, or I don't know what he was doing, playing like he was in the snow. But the way they got up for Juwan Jennings scoring a touchdown, the way they get up for other people scoring touchdowns, the way they run to the end zone when CMC scores a touchdown, like, this is really an unselfish team. And I wonder, and this could be hopeful, but I wonder if some of these players will take less money to keep this team together because of how much fun and how dominant this team is. I wonder if you can see some of these guys that have got paid, like a Armstead, maybe like a Fred Warner, maybe some of these guys that'll be like, look, I want to keep this together, because we saw it in Kansas City, right? Kelsey took less money. Patrick Mahomes took less money. The way that this team plays for each other, Jesse, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys take some discounts to keep this roster together.
I think second contract discounts, and you did talk about that. Some of these guys that have already gotten paid, I don't think guys like Ayuk who haven't gotten paid
No, they
are
have
going
to
to
go
take
get
that
their
discount.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, and nor should they. Nor should they. But some of these other guys that have gotten the big contract, as it comes around to a second contract or a 1-year deal or what have you, I certainly could see that. Brother Bob says, haha, the Fugly's just trash. That's why Carter cried. Oh, man. Matt says, holy crap. He said dink and dunk and is still alive.
It's a weapon. People didn't realize that dink and dunk is a weapon, but in Brock Purdy's hands, dink and dunk puts up 41 points.
Brother Bob says, no nails. The whole league is trash except for us. Rude. All right, fair enough. Jamaican boy, man, it's been a while. He says, hey, guys, can you explain why everyone, the fan base, was afraid of Philly but the Niners? Do you think it was just the players having a competitive nature? I think people just respect Philly. It does seem like the 49er fans, though, leading up to that game really took on the personality of the players and the calmness the players had, the confidence that the players had. I think this fan base really embodied that as well. So that's the only thing I can probably point to. Matt says, no horse collar in the pocket.
That's true. That's true.
Good point. Jalen says, put Big Dom on the Madden 25 cover.
Man, what a joke.
Oh, dude. Seriously, man. Seriously. Golly. All right. Let's talk about it. This one's going to get Brother Bob going. Do you think Kyle Shanahan should be Coach of the Year, Sunil?
Kyle Shanahan is having his best coaching year for the 49ers. And Jesse, I want to bring up some exhibits to make my case. So out of the bye, I think Shanahan had made 3 amazing coaching decisions that have made impacts in 3 big victories after the bye. The first one is coming right out of the bye. He got into Steve Wilkes' ear and said, "No longer are you going to be up in the press box. You're going to come down to the bench." And the reason for that is because this is what my defense feels most comfortable coaching style is a guy on the sidelines. Steve Wilkes has mentioned that has given him an opportunity to relay messaging more quickly to his team. And we've obviously seen the results, how this defense has been lights out against really good offenses since the bye week. So that's week 1. Exhibit 1. Exhibit 2, against the Seahawks, before the game, he goes up to one Charvarius Ward and he makes a executive decision. You are shadowing DK Metcalf. We saw what Charvarius Ward was able to do against DK Metcalf. We saw the kind of game DK Metcalf had. And then we saw the week after against Dallas what DK Metcalf was able to do, putting up 3 touchdowns. Once again, an elite coaching move that made a big impact and got a big victory. This week against the Eagles, we already mentioned how well of a coaching job that Kyle Shanahan did with the way that he put together an offensive scheme out of shotgun, quick dink and dunk passes to take advantage of a weak secondary and linebacking core in the middle. And that negated the pass rush that was so hard for us to overcome in in the NFC Championship game. But it also played our strengths against their weaknesses, which led to 41 points. That also, Kyle Shanahan did the impossible, which is get guys like you and Grant Cohn to talk about his humility and his ability to take accountability as a coach. To me, that all is encompassed in he is having the best coaching year ever. But when you ask me, should Kyle Shanahan be coach of the year? My answer is no. Because for as great as Kyle Shanahan is as a coach, he's better at developing coaches. And the coach of the year should be somebody from his tree over there as a rookie coach of the Texans, our guy, DeMeco Ryans. So he is the only reason why Kyle Shanahan won't become coach of the year this year.
If they make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, then I think he should be coach of the year. I thought Shanahan should have won the award last year just based off of what the 49ers were able to do. I thought his competition last year was Peterson and Daboll. Daboll ended up winning it. His competition this year, similar to Daboll, is turning a team around, and DeMeco Ryans, like you said. I think the other competition, which, I mean, let's be frank, the 49ers just whooped them, so it shouldn't be. But I think if the Eagles still get the number 1 seed, Sirianni is going to be in that conversation because he replaced both of his coordinators as well. And to get the number 1 seed, I think helps his case. I mean, I love what DeMeco's doing. I would probably say at this moment, yes, I would agree with you, DeMeco. But man, Shanahan coaching the way that he did last year and then coaching the way that he has this year and making all those micro improvements that we've talked about all year, that I've talked about, that you just talked about as well and alluded to, that I've been saying. I mean, at what point does he just win the award? You know what I mean? Like, how many times can you not give him an award that is probably rightfully his? I don't know, man. I think Shanahan's done a hell of a job. And whether he wins it or not, dude, it is the best coaching job he's done. And that's saying a lot because I thought he should have won it last year. So,
Brother Bob, I just want you to know where to put your hate at. That was Jesse saying yes, Sunil saying no, even though I'm the Shanistan on this show.
Brother Bob says, Kyle has all the talent in the world. This is why we should win the Super Bowl this year and should have last year. League is trash, but Lance, Sermon, TDP, coach of the year. That's different, though. That we're not saying he's executive of the year, right? Executive of the year is one thing. Coach of the year is completely different. I think executive decisions and talent evaluator Kyle gets in the way of Coach Kyle sometimes. But I think Coach Kyle's done a hell of a job. Matt says DeMeco is coach of the year if Houston makes the postseason. Yes, I agree. Did Kyle say that he had Ward shadow DK, or is that conjecture? Yes, it was Kyle. Ward said that it was Kyle, and the coaching staff told him it was Kyle. So yes, that was a Kyle decision, and another very, very good one. Samir says his best year, yes, but the award is probably going to D'Amico Ryans, and CJ is getting Rookie of the Year. CJ certainly is getting Rookie of the Year. CJ should be in the conversation for MVP as a rookie. CJ is the only quarterback at this moment that is on pace to throw for 5,000 yards this year, and to do that as a rookie is wow. Wow. CJ Stroud, very,
with all
very
rookie
good football
receivers,
player.
pretty much.
Yeah, you're right. And not the best team around him. So Jalen says if 13 wins, 13 wins, Super Bowl MVP, second year after Elbow Disney movie. Oh,
After
yeah. Okay, so you're saying Brock Purdy. Okay, I got you. Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
if
the
they win
only
a Super
reason why
Bowl,
the
Super
movie
Bowl
hasn't
MVP.
the only
Yeah.
reason why the movie hasn't come out yet is because he hasn't won the Super Bowl yet. So the script is already out.
It is out. I don't know if I think I said it maybe a couple weeks ago, but the conspiracy theory is that the Super Bowl colors saw
Right.
this one. Yeah, we talked about it. So
49ers
the
versus the
versus the
Ravens.
Ravens in the Super Bowl because of the colors of the Super Bowl sign this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked out like the last 4 or 5 years or what have you. Brother Bob says, wow, Sunil pulled Kyle's out of his mouth. I'm impressed. It was me. It was me that gave him all the love. You're right about that. And Jalen says, Coach of the Year should be McVay if the Rams make the playoffs.
Why?
I didn't even think about McVay. If they make the playoffs, I think that's. I don't think he should get it over to Miko if they make the playoffs, but he should be in consideration. Actually, I don't think he's that. Yeah. I would put him
I
in
don't think the
consideration.
seventh seed should get the play. Seventh seed should get the Coach of the Year position, especially when you got Rams still have a ton of talent on that team. So
What if Houston's the 7th seed though?
the difference between Houston and the Rams is Houston's whole team is rookies. So to me, that's you got to put that all on coaching. Their number one guy on offense, their quarterback's a rookie. Their two best receivers, and you know, prayers up for Tank Dell because he's out for the season. But Nico Collins is a rookie. Tank Dell is a rookie. That's their top two receivers. Their best player on defense, Will Anderson, he's a rookie. Like, there's just so many rookies on that team. First year rookie staff, rookie coach. Like, there's so many rookies on there, Jesse, that to me is all coaching. Whereas, you know, with the Rams, they still have Stafford, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They still have Cooper Kupp there, and even though, you know, Cooper Kupp isn't the same Cooper Kupp, they got a rookie in Puka Nacua who is playing lights out. Kerry Williams, their running back, he's been there for 2-3 years. He's a beast, you know. So it's like it's a great job to keep it together, even though they lost, you know, some players, but they still have that Super Bowl winning quarterback. To me, takes away what is the difference between what D'Amico is doing and what McVay is doing.
Yeah, I think, but Stafford missed a game or two.
And they
Cooper
lost
Kupp,
him.
Cooper Kupp missed. Yeah, but you've got to overcome that, right, to make the postseason. Cooper Kupp missed like the first 5 games or whatever. I don't know. I'm not saying that he should win it, but I think he should be in consideration if they make the playoffs. I don't think there's any harm making him in consideration. I'm not crowning him or anything like that. Matthew says, yo, I don't want to hear it. Yes, TDP, yes, Lance, etc. Look bad for the GM, but Lynch has CMC, Debo, Bosa, Young, Kittle, all on the same team. Lynch is elite. Lynch has done a fantastic job. I mean, talk about executive of the year. I think that he easily could be in that conversation. So, yeah, for sure. Jamaican Boy says, do you think there is any team left on the schedule that will bring the DBs back down to earth? Ooh, this is a 2-part question, but let's talk about that one. Back down to earth. I mean, if any team, I would have thought Philly. I think the Rams potentially could if they play in that game, assuming that both teams are playing. Just because it's the Rams are different. Their receivers are all about quickness. They're smaller. They're not the big guys that you want to get up and press. They a lot of them have two-way releases on every single route, which is super hard to cover. So I think the Rams technically could be a team, especially week 18, where you leave it and go, "Oh man, I thought the secondary was really good, and all of a sudden they're not. We should be worried." I'm actually going to predict the conversation right now. The Rams are going to quote unquote expose the secondary. It's going to be a big talking point going into the playoffs, and then the 49ers are going to look just fine in the playoffs because there is no team that has the quick receivers like the Rams that are unique and play that style. So I could see the Rams potentially doing it, but I don't think that it means anything long term. What do you think, Sunil?
My answer would be no. There is no
Okay.
team.
Okay. He says, do you think Kyle winning coach of the year will get to his head and mess up the postseason? No, because the award, even if that was the case, is not announced until before the Super Bowl, and that week off, I think, is when the awards are done. So, nope, not possible.
And stop with the Kyle Shanahan. It'll go to his head. These narratives need to die.
Jalen says the Rams' whole team is rookies. Nakua is a rook.
I just mentioned most of their team that's not a rookie. Nakua is their only rook.
Maybe offensively. I think defensively they have a bunch of kind of no-name guys too, and their defense is done pretty good. I think you're just not willing to give Sean McVay any credit.
Sean McVay's already been coach of the year.
Brother Bob says, nice to Neil. Now I'm mad at Nails. First the Bengals, now this.
Get him, Brother Bob.
Hey, did you see the Bengals have an elite quarterback now too? Did you see what he did yesterday?
Sure did.
Might be elite. Matt says Nico drafted in 2021.
But he was out all
Nico
season,
Collins.
wasn't
What was that?
Wasn't he out all last season?
I don't know. But what is he? What has Nico Collins really been before this year? I don't know. Maybe he's been okay. Jalen says Harbaugh winning coach of the year though for the AFC is in a tougher than the NFC.
Are they though?
Harbaugh's a good coach too, man. I like
He
Harbaugh. I just don't think that. I think it's clear that when Lamar's in, they just win a lot, and when he's not, they don't. So I mean, as long as Lamar's healthy, you know, I don't know. I think he's a great coach, but I don't think he deserves coach of the year. Brother Bob says, listen, Sanders, if we don't win the Super Bowl, then what? Useless. I don't want to be like Marv Levy's Bills or the really old Vikings. Think Bill Walsh tradition. I agree. I don't think Sunil wants to not win a Super Bowl either.
I just think they've developed a dynasty. I think that the patience that this fan base has had will lead to multiple chips with this regime, which is what I've been screaming from the top of my lungs year after year, talking about just see what is being built here. And I think we're going to start seeing the fruits of their labor.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that as long as they win a Super Bowl this year, I can see that happening. If they don't, I'm going to be really worried about it happening anytime soon. I just got to be real with you. But I also think that it feels like their year. It really does. But we'll see. All right, last thing here. Yes, the 49ers won. Yes, the 49ers look fantastic. But no, the 49ers still aren't perfect, and no team ever is. Maybe you think they are, Sunil. Maybe there's no adjustments that you would make for this team going forward. But maybe there is. Do you have any adjustments or small tweaks that you would make down this stretch run for the San Francisco 49ers?
I'm still more comfortable with Feliciano in at right guard than Burford.
Thank you.
And I tweeted
that's the right answer.
And it didn't necessarily really was a big deal last week, but I do think that having McKivitz, McKivitz held up too, so got to give them props. But am I confident that McKivitz and Burford are going to be able to hold up week after week after week? I don't have that confidence. I do have confidence in Feliciano though, so that would be the tweak that I think. I'm wondering why they did go back to Burford. I thought that they had like an out with Feliciano and Burford just easing them in or just saying, hey, we're going with the hot hand or whatever. But they did put Burford back in there, and look, it didn't harm him this game. But to me, I would want the starting lineup to have Feliciano in there.
Completely agree with you. And the plan was to rotate them, is what Kyle Shanahan said. The plan was to, one drive in, one drive out. But he said that Burford played so well that he just kept him in there. I think Burford had some moments where he struggled a little bit early. The sack was kind of on him, and then he had the false start. I think he turned it around and actually played really well. That being said, I trust Feliciano more. I think Feliciano is just a better player at this stage. And I think Burford can be fine. I still think that he's developing just fine. But if the goal is to get the best players on the field, I think at this moment, for this run, Feliciano is the better option. And that is the only adjustment that I would make, is to get him on the field. Now, again, much like they kind of fell into the luck before with Burford being injured, sounds like he's now hurt his other knee. Don't know that that's necessarily going to keep him out of this game. But if it does, and Feliciano comes in and plays really, really good again, maybe that's enough for them to be like, okay, we've seen enough. We're going to go that route. I don't know. But if there was anything to nitpick for me, it's still the offensive line has some issues at times. Don't fully trust them, but I think the answers are on the roster to get a little bit better, and that answer is Feliciano, and he should be playing, in my opinion. I agree with you.
One other tweak is if Ray isn't back there, I want Ayuk over Ronnie Bell.
Oh, hold on. Yeah. Okay.
I think Ronnie.
I was gonna say I like the Debo tweak, which they did. I remember against Green Bay in that playoff run a couple years ago, and we loved it. I did like that wrinkle, and I like that wrinkle in the playoffs as well. But yes, I like it. Talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ronnie Bell muffed the punt, and it didn't affect us or anything. But if we're gonna have Debo do kick returns, put Ayuk back there, man. Ayuk's a beast. He played really, really well as a punt returner at Arizona. And get the ball into playmakers' hands as much as possible. We all know most of the time they're going to be just fair catching it anyways. But if Ayuk has an opportunity, wouldn't you want him with the ball rather than Ronnie Bell? To me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's a great call out by you. Great call out by you, and I agree with it. Matthew says, Brother Bob or Abe Simpson? Nick Clouds. Severe says, nitpicking, want better effort from Debo on fakes. It's just who Debo is, man. It's who Debo is. He doesn't carry out the fakes the best. And I agree with you. Brother Bob says, Abe Simpson is my favorite character. Now respect your elders. Of course, he's your favorite character. 808 Niner says, stop blitzing on 3rd and long and kick coverage.
Kick coverage is a good fair call out, because they have been shaky on that every now and then.
Yeah,
but
certainly.
once again, I want to give props out to Luter, Womack. I mean, I know Womack's injured right now, but these guys are playing amazing in special teams. And once again, shout out to Adam Peters and Lynch for finding these guys year after year after year.
Special teams is getting super banged up, though. I mean, I think Luter also has an injury. I mean, there's some things going on. So hopefully the special teams. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully special teams can keep things going. Jalen says, need to get Jawan more involved, open BA and Debo. I think it's hard to get him more involved. I like when he is involved. I think he does good things, but you can't really game plan for him to be more involved, in my opinion, Jalen. I just think that these other players there's too many good ones.
He's the 5th option.
Joey Mellon says, do I play DK in fantasy this week? What are your other options? Joey, real quick, throw out your other options, and I'll let you know what my opinion is. Yeah.
Dwelly's out.
Yes.
Who do you think? Is it just Charlie Warner goes in, or you think that's enough? I mean, I know he's not a big play, but it does mess up, I guess, the depth chart a little bit with the tight ends.
Yeah, I think you just elevate Willis. elevate Willis and see what he can do. I think Willis did great in training camp. I think he did really good. I think he's a pretty good player. I would elevate him. I don't think that there's anything that Dwelly brings that Willis can't, I guess.
Mhm.
So I would
I
say
think they just use. I think we see more use check.
yeah, I think that's fair as well. I think that's fair as well. But special teams wise, you're gonna need some players and hopefully Willis can provide some of that as well. Joey, I don't see your other receivers in there yet. I'll check in a second. Black Suburban says, anyone else notice that we play Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve this season? I knew Thanksgiving and Christmas. I didn't even pay attention to New Year's Eve. That Christmas one's going to be fun. I
Boy's
can't
gonna
wait
be
for that
there.
one.
Your
Yeah,
boy's
yeah,
gonna
gonna
be
be
there.
there. It's my son's favorite team. That's going to be a fun one to watch with him. Can't wait for that one. We are talking to Zach Ertz per reports. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
That's good.
he's trying to choose between the Niners and the Eagles. It looks like.
Oh, is that the case? Well,
Mhm.
there we go. There we go. I would think he would choose the Eagles, but maybe not.
I mean, maybe they forced Dwelly to get an injury, so he gave us first.
I gotta say, if I'm Kansas City, I'm going all in on him. All in on him.
I think that's an option as well, and the Ravens. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard
It's
the Ravens
only
are.
playoff teams.
Yeah. Can you not? I hear all that.
Sorry,
It's,
sorry.
that's all right.
You're right.
But Ertz is from Cali. I heard the Ravens weren't in on him that because they think that there's a chance that Andrews might come back. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe that was just coach speak. They like who's in the building. The 49ers said the same thing. Samir said, I had the same fantasy issue. DK, Smith, Downs, and Amari probably injured. Pick 2. I think you roll with your studs. I would go with Smith and DK. I mean,
Me as well. Both of those teams are in meaningful games.
yeah. I mean,
And
DK
have
obviously
the better quarterbacks.
Yeah, obviously DK going against San Francisco, and we saw what it looked like a couple weeks ago. But I think DK is a good enough player potentially to where he can break out of this. I don't think as highly of him as I do AJ Brown by any means, but he's clearly better than any other option there. So
Amari, we don't know who's throwing it to him, and he's injured. Downs his play has been down actually the last few weeks. So it's a tough role to be in, but definitely the first 2.
yeah, I don't think that there was necessarily a fallout. He's been liking all Eagles tweets, Eagles related tweets, if that means anything. Somebody had tweeted at him saying, "Hey, come finish your career here." When he left the Eagles, he said that he would like to retire in an Eagle uniform and not necessarily just show up and sign a one-day contract, but he would like to actually finish his playing career there. And he also liked the tweet that Shaq Leonard had signed there. So I don't think that there's really any bad blood. And yes, the Ravens think that possibly Andrews will be back in the playoffs. Jesse, imagine the Niners destroying the Ravens and making your son have to change his heart and fan him. I don't think it's going to happen. I have a surprise that week, and I think that you'll see that he's a real Ravens fan. Matt says, we are talking with Zach Ertz per report. Saw that one okay. Thank you, Matt. Brother Bob says, Nails about to bish slap Sunil for tapping. I saw that. No, it's not about that. I don't think he realized how loud it was, but I was definitely picking up. I was like, oh, no, please don't do that. Because he doesn't have his mic. His mic would normally cut most of that out. Okay, there we go. I think we're good. Think we're good to go. Sunil?
Man, shout out to the chat. They were really lit this episode.
Coming through, man. Coming through strong for sure. It was awesome. Awesome to see you guys contribute the way that you always do. Make sure that you are tapped in tomorrow night, Behind Enemy Lines, Seattle content creator. Same one as always, Brandon. I love Brandon. I love doing shows with him. But I got a conversation I got to have with him around Geno Smith. That was a big argument that we had during the offseason. It got a little bit, I wouldn't say heated, but a little bit of contentious. And I want to revisit that argument because I think that my side is proven out thus far to be right. But we'll see what he thinks. That'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that one. Sunil, as always, thank you for giving us your time. Chat, as always, thank you so much for tapping in. I'll be back tomorrow with Behind Enemy Lines. We'll see you then. Peace.